You're doing video and I'm doing audio, right? Christopher, I think you can help me watch it. Yeah. Testing. Hello? Hello? Testing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I would turn it up a little bit even.
Can you turn it up a little bit? Hi. Ooh, there we go. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. If you all want to gather around on the steps here, maybe. And we need to keep this area in front here clear, please. And right here, we need to keep this walkway in the center clear and right here. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. You are all so wonderful for coming. I really appreciate it. This is such an important event. We all join together and we will do powerful things. So I just want to get this going. Um, I want to acknowledge that this event is taking place on the traditional lands of Nisqually, Saxon, and we really appreciate everyone that's here and coming together for this event. My name is Christina Malie. I've been an environmentalist and an animal advocate and a naturalist for the last 30 years of my life. I'm here today to talk about the lower river snake dams and the path forward to restoring our abundant nature. And I'm also here to tell you a story. Once upon a time, long ago, in our own backyard, there was a glorious river flowing through the mountains for hundreds and hundreds of miles. It flowed through the forest and the canyons, then down to the sea. The water was filled with millions of salmon and other fish swimming up and down the river. As you may know, salmon spawn generation after generation in the same river. They swim hundreds of miles upstream, fighting the current, waterfalls, boulders, and predators. Their remarkable journey brings vital nutrients to the entire ecosystem as they travel, feeding everything from bears to trees. They are literally mountain climbers without legs, responsible for the health of millions of other animals and the forest itself. The salmon back then were so big they were taller than most men. The river was alive and thriving, as were all the creatures that depended upon it. The people and the animals of the land, air, water, all lived in harmony with Earth and all of her creations. Every creature only took what they needed, and every being was happy and healthy. Then one day, men who weren't from the land there came and brought big machines, piled up the soil, and stopped the beautiful river's flow, disturbing her energy and the bounty that she brought. The mighty flow of the river was blocked and reduced to a fraction of what it once was. Its very life flow was under the control of people who were unable to understand the ruin they had created. The fish were unable to swim through the waters that they had spawned for millennia. The rivers became hot and stagnant, filled with the noise of barges and traffic. The salmon tried and tried to return to the place of their birth, but instead came upon the walls of the dams and despite their efforts could not reach their spawning grounds. The trees began to decay, as too they were starved, as all the other creatures from the powerful orcas, bears, eagles, and salamanders, otters, and shrews all felt the pain of the hunger as they saw their beloved river reduced to a memory. And learn how to find food to survive. Like the tour of grief that one of our beloved southern residents, Wales, Tahlequah, showed us as she carried her dead baby on her head, a baby less than an hour old. And for 17 days, the people saw and shared in her grief and pain. How much more did Tahlequah have to do to show us that her family are starving? A vital cycle of life had been diminished to once a powerful river who is now a shadow of her former glory, affecting every living being that once depended on her, including the people of the land. Over the decades, billions of dollars were needlessly spent and tried to bring back the salmon, all of which was wasted as the dams remained and the salmon could not thrive. The beloved resident orcas who once filled the Salish Sea with their families, songs, and wonder could no longer find the food they desperately needed. And along with the baby orca captures of the 60s and 70s, their numbers have never recovered. Babies born to them are starved for nutrients, and the mighty Snake River once abundantly provided, and they are forced to search elsewhere for salmon. Now they are rarely seen in their home waters and are forced to swim farther and farther away in search of food. The loss of life these magnificent beings continue to endure doesn't have to be their fate. You have the chance to save the river, our beloved orcas, and all the creatures who depend on her. We know how these dams have crippled her. And, excuse me, and we know a very simple way to restore her. We must breach the lower river stakes dams now. Not years from now, not weeks from now, but right now. We must take responsibility for our mistakes of the past and be better stewards of the earth. The river will come back if we simply remove what blocks her flow. We have seen rivers like the Elwha and now the Klamath being restored, and we have watched the salmon and the other animals return in very short order. We must restore and protect our vital natural resources and allow nature to recover. So please join us and demand the once mighty Snake River be restored to her natural state. Write President Biden, write to the governors and the senators, and demand change. Together we can accomplish great things. Please use your voice. Thank you. Okay, so now we have our wonderful Howard Garrett, the board and president of Orca Network and the Center of Well Research, an amazing, brilliant being. Give a hand to Howard Garrett.
Thank you, Christina. That was wonderful. And thanks everybody for giving me this chance to say something about how critically important it is to breach those 4 Snake River dams, and also how doable it actually is. And to do that, I would like to use the words of my good friend Jim Waddell and my brother, Ken Dalton, from their declarations in the 2021 amicus brief that was submitted in the Snake River litigation. And what an honor that is to them to use their words, to honor them. They both lived by their words. And their words were based on facts and reality and moral clarity. So I'm going to read some excerpts and some side notes of my own. But first, for the record, Jim Waddell was a 35-year career veteran of the Army Corps of Engineers. For about the first 20 of those years, he was in Washington, D.C. He was working on policies, sustainable development policy for the Army Corps of Engineers. And then in 1999, he was transferred to the Walla Walla District, which is the Snake River District, to help complete the Columbia River System Operations Environmental Impact Statement on the feasibility of breaching the dams to restore the ESA-listed salmon. So Jim looked at all the data and he recommended breaching the dams. But in their report, they overruled him and chose other options and chose to keep the dams. So after Jim retired from the Army Corps in 2013, he took another look at the numbers and realized that they had grossly overestimated the cost of breaching and underestimated the benefits of breaching. So their conclusion to not breach was not valid. But he was like a lone voice. But you don't get more inside the beast than Jim was. 35 years in the Army Corps. He helped to write that EIS. He knew the policies. He was in the conversations. He knew what they were telling the people and what they really believed. He knew it all. He came right out from the Corps of Engineers. And he tried to tell people, but he was kind of a lone voice because he was really the only one, the only engineer. Biologists, salmon biologists, orca biologists, they saw it, but he had that inside information that was crucially important, and I will get to that. Okay, so filed 10/21/21 before the Honorable Michael H. Simon in the case against National Marine Fisheries Service and other defendants brought by the state of Oregon. Okay. Okay, is this better? Brought by the state of Oregon and American Rivers et al. And I will say at this point that Elizabeth Dunn, who is standing over there, had an awful lot to do with this amicus brief. A lot of the whole idea of it and the formatting into this impeccable legalese, editing of it. So kudos to Elizabeth, who will be speaking in this right there. And along with Jim's amicus brief was declarations by Ken Balcom, which I'll read from, and Deborah Giles, Rodney Sando, and Chris Penny, who is here holding up a banner back there, I believe. Yep. Hey, Chris. All right, here we go. Amicus curiae brief of James Waddell, providing engineering and public policy knowledge with economic and scientific evidence in support of a court order to breach the dams. Side note here, nobody had ever asked the court to tell the Corps to breach the dams. The reason is nobody knew that the Corps could breach the dams, that they had the authority to do it. I think that's the best kept secret in the history of the West. It's incredible. And we will get back to that. Okay, back to the declaration. Introduction and summary of argument. In 2005, this court warned NOAA and other federal agencies to be aware of the possibility of breaching the 4 dams on the lower Snake River if all else fails. The overwhelming scientific evidence is that all else has failed. It's time to breach. This is Jim. This insanity must come to an end, or this endless loop of litigation without tangible, meaningful results will make a mockery of our justice system, to say the least. The original stakeholders are the indigenous peoples who walked this land since time immemorial, and the Snake River ecosystem, and wild Snake River salmon and steelhead, and southern resident orcas. Those are the real stakeholders. But of course, there are more than enough financial resources to make everyone whole, which the administration, that is the Biden administration, primarily through the Corps and the BPA, are well equipped to address once breaching is ordered. In other words, Congress is not even needed to fund the breaching. They don't have to be involved at all. The purpose of this brief and my declaration is to offer my expertise and insight to the court as a high-level Corps employee for 35 years in order to assist it in reaching a decision about ordering the breach of the lower Snake River dams. He keeps coming back to that. He was telling the court for the first time ever, breach the dams, tell the Corps, because they're violating the Environmental Species Act. Court intervention is necessary. This is in all caps, so I have to yell. Court intervention is necessary to force the federal agencies to comply with their legal obligation. Dam breaching is the only viable remedy to save these endangered species. The court should order dam breaching starting this year to save endangered Snake River salmon and steelhead. Most of the fisheries scientists in the region agree that without breaching, Snake River wild salmon and steelhead will continue rapidly to extinction. And here's the big news in the declaration. Jim says, I find it imperative to correct an often stated misconception, which is that the Corps does not have the authority to breach the dams. The federal agencies perpetuate this misconception right there in the 2002 Columbia River Systems Operation EIS by claiming the Corps would require congressional approval of such an action. I do not want the court to in any way be dissuaded from ordering the Corps to breach the dams based on an erroneous understanding of the scope of the Corps' discretion and inherent authority. When a project is no longer justified, whether for economic or environmental reasons or both, the Corps is authorized to place it in caretaker or non-operational status. Another side note, Ken, my brother, tried to set the record straight. During the 2018 Governor's Task Force, I saw it on TV. He said, can we at least try to determine who has the authority to breach the dams? He said that to the task force. He said, all you have to do is call the commander. Just ask him. Nobody would do it. Nobody was interested. Nobody followed up. Everybody believes that Congress has to approve breaching. Go out, ask anybody, any journalist, any elected official, anybody on the street, that has become the universal belief, and that is a roadblock. That's an absolute stoppage. It's paralysis of any action to actually breach if you believe that, well, it's got to go through Congress and, not going to make it through Congress. No, they're not going to approve. You know that. but everybody is totally convinced. Yeah, the initial funding was by Congress to build the dams in the first place, and Congress still funds up to about $1 billion a year. I don't know the exact number, but it's a whole lot of money. But they didn't tell the Corps, they didn't mandate, they didn't require the Corps to build the dams. They offered the money if the Corps chose to build the dams. The Corps did, and then they said, now Congress has to tell us if they want it down. No, they can do it themselves. And that means the court can order it, and it also means the White House, the executive branch, the commander-in-chief can order the Army Corps to breach the dams. Executive order, bingo, it's done. Okay. We were the decision to construct the dams and operate them to this day, or to declare the dams do not serve the purpose for which they were built and do not generate any revenue. They don't. They're money losers and are a drain on taxpayers and ratepayers and are violating the Endangered Species Act, as well as numerous treaties with the tribes. That determination is entirely within the Corps of Engineers. The Army Corps owns the dams. I know I've repeated that point a few times, but it's really critical. And then Jim describes exactly what steps are needed to actually breach the dams, and I'll paraphrase for him: get a couple of D8 caterpillars and dig a notch in the earthen berms about 60 feet down to the water level, and then stand back and let the river breach its own dams. That's the approved way. That is actually written in the Army Corps EIS. That's how you do it. It's really, really simple and really, really cheap. You have to secure the concrete part so they're not a safety hazard. You have to shore up any roads and bridges that might be weakened by the removal of the water pressure, but that's basically how you do it. Okay, now, Declaration of Kenneth Balcom III in support of amicus curiae brief of James Waddell, 10/21/21. I, Kenneth Balcom III, hereby state and declare as follows. And then Ken tells his biography about his early whale studies, and then his time in the Navy doing anti-submarine detection and deep sea acoustics, all very relevant. And then he says, whales have been the focus of my life since 1963. I am a pioneer in photo identification of cetaceans and founder of Orca Survey. In 1976, a study of southern resident killer whales. I founded the nonprofit Center for Whale Research in 1985 and served as its volunteer executive director and as principal investigator. He's talking to the judge, you know, he's building his credibility by pointing out his bona fides, his resume. I can be considered a naturalist and a population scientist. Yeah. I have personally observed whales, and in particular the southern residents, for over 45 years. I have documented virtually every birth and death in this population since 1976, and he says, and continue to do so. A federal court agreement citing our findings in late 76 effectively banned killer whale captures from the state. I spent a lot of time observing the behavior and travels of the southern residents, and that's an understatement. He spent thousands of hours over 4.5 decades in the presence of southern resident killer whales. I observed that from May to September, J pod was often in the Salish Sea, and K and L pods would come in episodically. K and L pods clearly spent more time in the coastal waters than J pod, and they now spend almost all their days on the coast, along the coast and not inside the Salish Sea. We soon found that SRKW's food supply was salmon, particularly Chinook. By 1990, prey remains and scat studies at the entrance of the Strait of Juan de Fuca and inside Puget Sound confirmed that the SRKWs were primarily eating Chinook salmon. Chinook were at least 80 to 85% of their diet from May to September. It became clear that southern residents mostly stayed within a few to a dozen miles of shore, mostly in corridors of salmon migrations. The National Marine Fisheries Service subsequently conducted satellite tagging studies, and they confirmed that southern residents spent a lot of time near the mouth of the Columbia River, returning to the Snake Columbia River all the time. Evidence of a strong connection between southern residents and salmon continues. We are finding that where salmon are depleted, the whales are infrequently found and their body condition is deteriorating. They are starving or nutritionally challenged in government speak. This is now happening in all seasons, leading to high mortality. All the southern residents are connected to the abundance of Chinook salmon from the Columbia and Snake River. The southern resident community needs to capture at least 500,000 adult salmon a year. For the population to grow to 140, which would be a healthy, robust population, an allowance of 1 million salmon a year will be required. Decline in prey abundance has forced SRKW to metabolize their blubber, which then mobilizes toxins which were stored in their fat. Increasing toxins in the orca's system leads to a rise in reproductive failures and immunosuppression. Decline in prey abundance and size is correlated with reduced social cohesion. The pods fragment. They don't get together. They don't socialize as much. They don't have their superpod gatherings as much when they're all out searching for food. Southern residents were listed under the ESA in 2005, citing our data when the population consisted of 88 whales. Now, after years of work to revitalize their numbers, the population size has fallen to a total of 73 as of October 1, 2021. It's now 74. This decline has coincided with years of low salmon abundance. Unfortunately, the whales do not have a voice in this ongoing litigation. Politicians and bureaucrats have been fighting over the Snake River for decades, since before the dams were built, when I was still in high school, and that was 1958. Meanwhile, the iconic species who faced the greatest risk were minimized in the discussions, and the relevant biological science was neglected, along with common sense. All animals need to eat. These orcas need Chinook salmon, and those Chinook need rivers. This is why this is Ken speaking. This is why I became an advocate for breaching the Lower Snake River dams. It is potentially the single most important measure we can take to get the southern residents enough food before it is too late. Reaching the Lower Snake River dams would open the gateway to a vast 5,500-mile expanse of largely intact spawning streams that run through millions of acres of wilderness. This will subsequently revitalize salmon populations, leading to an increase in critical food source for southern residents. Now is the time to act. Endless studies and political debates will not change the fact that SRKWs are well along the road to biological extinction. We don't need more words. As I told Governor Inslee's Orca Task Force, these whales don't eat words, they eat salmon. No matter how lofty our speech, if we are not recovering natural wild salmon, we are not recovering these whales. It is that simple. Salmon hatchery supplementation is clearly not working as these salmon stocks continue to decline. Give the salmon rivers.
Yes.
I declare under penalty of perjury that the foregoing is true and correct to the best of my knowledge. Signed, KCB3. Thank you.
Oh, we're going to introduce Deb Ellers. Deb Ellers. Deb Ellers.
I thought it was good. I would like to now introduce Deborah Ellers, who has a message to read to us.
Sorry.
That's right. No problem. We can adapt.
Greetings, salmon and orca advocates. I am Deborah Ellers. I am with the North Olympic Orca Pod, if you can't tell, as well as the Great Old Browser Wilderness. Both groups are represented here. I actually am not on the agenda. I am honored to be standing here and speaking for Ione Jones, who was scheduled to speak and had a family emergency yesterday and informed us she couldn't make it. But Ione asked that we read a letter she has written on Snake River Dam's issues. Message from Ione Jones, Executive Director of Kimstonik, which is a grassroots, indigenous-led Washington nonprofit corporation working to understand systems affecting Indian country, such as Columbia River salmon, and other native fish restoration and other relevant information. I might mention that Ione Jones is a member of the family of Carrie Nightwalker Schuster and Jesse Nightwalker, many of whom you all may have been at rallies like this with them, and Ione is picking up that work. Kimstonik, which stands for grandmother, represents the lineal descendants of those whose culture, lands, and resources have been directly impacted by the activities of the federal government in the region of the lower Snake River. The construction of the lower Snake River dams is part of a legacy of federal actions that harmed and continue to harm the original peoples and persons of Southeast Washington who for millennia lived in relationship with the waters, lands, and other species. Part of this legacy of harm is the injury to salmonid species and ongoing threat to their persistence in the Columbia River Basin. It is manifestly clear these efforts have and continue to be insufficient, and that these species are unlikely to persist in the river as long as these dams continue to operate. The systematic removal of the original peoples and persons from their lands along the lower Snake River broke the relationship between those who know how to care for this region and the lands and waters. Kimstonik identifies and works to heal disparities that have arisen from centuries of cultural appropriation and land thefts. Through this healing, Kimstonik helps restore deep cultural relationships and knowledge of the regions where, for millennia, ancestral traditions provided the necessary context and knowledge for sustainable relationships among people and with the lands, water, and other beings. The work of Kimstonik is intimately tied to the lower Snake River because it grows directly from the historic and ongoing relationship and cultural and lifestyle of the traditional peoples and original peoples and persons of this region. Decades of scientific analysis make clear that the lower Snake River dams create insurmountable constraints to recovery of Snake River and Columbia Basin salmon, steelhead, bull trout, white sturgeon, and Pacific lamprey. Indeed, with the onset of climate change impacts, these impacts will only be magnified in the future. Breaching these dams is essential to ensuring survival of these species in the region and to ensuring they are resilient to accelerating climate change impacts. Further, dam breaching may bring with it additional positive ecosystem benefits for the region. By breaching the dams, not only will the region regain the protection of migratory fishes that existed in the region prior to the dams, the breaching is likely to provide the umbrella for multiple additional species in the region. In conclusion, it is abundantly clear that despite all the plans and actions put in place across jurisdictions, the fisheries remain strained and injuries to the original people and persons remain unaddressed. Kim Sinek asked the federal government undertake breaching the dams and do so through programs and plans that directly engage and support those in southeastern Washington with the cultural history, knowledge, and ability to provide the expertise necessary to restore this region. Signed, Ilawa Litzen Maye, Ione Jones, Executive Director, President Kim Sinek. Thank you, Ione, for those words. And on behalf of Ione, I also want to extend an invitation to everyone for an event that the Lower Snake Palouse are hosting in Pasco, Washington at Sacagawea State Park. It is April 19th. You can go to their website, givingvoice.org, and find this invitation. It's open to everyone. And the invitation reads, Kim Sinek invites you to be a part of a momentous event that celebrates a rich legacy of cultural and traditional knowledge of the Snake River Palouse. I'm going to be there, and I hope some others of you can. I know we have a bunch of big old broads coming as well to support Ione. And so, Christina, since I have the bully pulpit, I'm going to take it over, and I'm going to invite members of the North Olympic Orca Pod to please come down here and lead us all to chant about what we think that our politicians, including Governor Inslee, Senator Murray, and Senator Cantwell, need to be doing. We're going to repeat this chant 3 times, but I'll run through it 1 time so you can hear it. The chant goes like this. Breach the dams, free the snake, salmon, and orcas. Cannot wait. So we'll do that for 3 times. Okay, Orca Pod. Breach the dams, free the snake, salmon, and orcas. Cannot wait. Breach the dams, free the snake, salmon, and orcas. Cannot wait. Breach the dams, free the snake, salmon, and orcas. Cannot wait. Thank you, podmates. And I'd like to introduce our next speaker, which is Elizabeth Dunn. Elizabeth Dunn is an awesome movement lawyer who works with nonprofits, the Earth Law Center, and Dam Sense, and is a close collaborator of the late Jim Waddell, founder of Dam Sense. Let's welcome Ellie up here.
Thank you, Deborah.
Does that work? Yeah. Thank you so much. Is that loud enough? Okay. Good. Thank you all. Thank you for that chant. I can feel the energy building, and I am just so grateful to all of you for being here. And I hope you're thanking yourselves for being here, because you are the voices of those who are not represented in a lot of these conversations that are occurring about dam breaching. And you're holding that space to speak for the species, to to speak and be allies of the people who have been marginalized and cut out of conversations that have led to an agreement that pushes dam breaching 10 years down the line. So thank you for being here today and standing up and using your voice to speak for these species, to speak for the river. I'm grateful. Very well timed barking. I wrote down a few things to say, but I think I'll probably just freestyle like I usually do. As Deborah said, I worked a long time with the late Jim Waddell, who was an inspiration to all of us for speaking the truth and sharing knowledge, and how he did such a beautiful job of sharing some of that knowledge with you. And we're going to need that knowledge, because I know, and we all know, that it is going to be very important to keep educating people that we do not need Congress to breach these dams. It does not take Congress. It's us. It's up to us. Call your politicians. Tell them to act. So I feel emotional about the loss of Jim, because he was an inspiration to so many. And so I'm here.
You're good. You're good. God bless you. You're fine. He's looking at you right now. Yeah.
We have these really cool bookmarks that have his picture on them. And please pick one up over there, as well as our myth versus fact sheets, to tell the truth about what's happening with the dams. And so with my lawyer hat on, I'm a movement lawyer, which means that I do a lot of legal research and writing, and I also do a lot of grassroots advocacy and come to events like this. And I got together with Jim, and we did a lot of thinking, and I did some legal research, and I wrote a very long memo, and it became a law review article, which you don't have to read, but it was published, and it's on DamSense's website. And the reason I'm mentioning this to you is that this law review article talks about the fact that the executive branch can breach the dams. The Army Corps of Engineers can breach the dams. The president can breach the dams. And if you think about it, there's a lot of legal arguments in here in case law, but that just makes sense. How is it possible that we could continue to spend money on dams that are killing salmon, killing endangered species, and that the Army Corps would have to continue to do that and wait for Congress to take action? No, we can't wait. That doesn't make sense. You don't even need legal arguments to understand that. But we have them, and I will share that as part of the mediation discussions, I shared this with folks, and not a single person told me that anything in here was wrong. They didn't come up with any law or any facts to tell me that we were wrong. And so we're going to need this information, and that is why I'm sharing it with you, that you can tell your elected officials that they can tell the Army Corps of Engineers, we can put pressure on the administration still, and we can let them know that we cannot wait another 10 years.
Yeah.
And I was just going to share one more thing that is from a Vision magazine, and Vision magazine was a project of Jim Waddell and DamSense. You can also find it on the website, but it is basically about what life looks like after the breach of the dams. And I'm sharing that because it is so important for us to visualize the future when we don't have these dams, because that is going to happen. And my son, who's 4, is going to see that in his lifetime. So, and this is from the magazine. We were ready to take back the river, lost to us by these 4 dams. Removing the earthen berms brought back a well-preserved river and its floodplains. Being kept in cold storage over 50 years, upon meeting the light of day, this region invited the return of previously lost wildlife, agriculture, tourism, and human connection to a sacred place. Collectively and fervently, we say, welcome back home. It was about damn time. And I have to add one more thing, that I was thinking about what I was going to say in the car on the way over, and my son came up with a good a good ending, my 4-year-old says, after they are done breaching the dams, you can give them a high five and say, good job, your mind is working right. Thank you so much. I don't know who I'm introducing next. I'm sorry. I might be. London? Are you next? Yay! All right. I don't know if London needs an introduction because I remember London from like 6 years ago, the last time I was here. But welcome. Yeah, thank you. You do have an introduction? I didn't know I was reading it. Oh, you are right here. Okay. No problem. You have nice handwriting. Okay. London Fletcher is except this word. Is a 16-year-old who has been advocating on behalf of this planet for the past 10 years. She has focused her efforts on one key issue in particular, the plight of the SRWs. She has continued to be a very vocal advocate for the SRWs over the years by attending rallies and speaking on behalf of the orcas at events all over Washington state. London is also a research assistant at the Orca Research Trust in New Zealand and one of the youngest members of the Society for Marine Mammalogy. As a spokesperson for the generation that is going to inherit the choices that policymakers make today, London has made it her mission to do whatever she can to advocate for the SRWs and the ecosystem they call home.
Today, I come to you again on behalf of the critically endangered southern resident killer whales of the Salish Sea, echoing the voices of more than 800,000 people who have signed the petition to breach the lower 4 Snake River dams, and as a spokesperson of the generation which will inherit the problems stemming from the decisions and policies that are being made today. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, and fellow champions of marine conservation, it is a privilege to stand before you today with a shared vision of hope and determination. As we gather in unity to address the urgent call to protect the species on the brink of extinction, I am compelled by a sense of duty and reverence for the magnificent creatures that grace our oceans. With each wave that washes ashore, we are reminded of the interconnectedness of all life forms, driving us to take action and stand as stewards of the sea. It is in this spirit of collaboration and unwavering dedication that we embark on a journey towards a sustainable future, where the echo of our efforts will resonate for generations to come. Together, let us ignite a flame of compassion and commitment to safeguard the wonders of our precious garden of a planet. Now, let us begin. The Rural Electric Co-op's campaign to do Bonneville Power Administration's dirty work is a glaring example of greed masquerading as concern for the community. These campaigns are fueled by disinformation, work against the interests of co-op members, keeping rates higher than necessary, and keeping the public in the dark. BPA's own projections have shown that breaching could save up to 15% annually on electricity costs, yet co-ops cry wolf, claiming breaching could raise rates by 50% or more, a blatant falsehood with absolutely zero basis in fact. As we stand here today, the evidence has never been clearer, nor the stakes higher. The science is established, the economic benefits confirmed, yet misinformation and greed continue to obstruct the path to recovery. This is not just about whales or salmon. This is about the kind of world we choose to leave behind. To the co-op executives and those in positions of influence, hear this. The time for unethical practices and short-sighted decisions is over. We are in the 11th hour, and the future we are fighting for is not just for the southern resident killer whales or the Chinook salmon, but for all of us, for our children, and for the generations to come. We are the generation who are being called upon to wage your wars and sacrifice our lives for this country. We are keenly aware that we are the ones who will ultimately inherit the enormous responsibility of keeping our borders secure, our democracy intact, and way of life preserved, while simultaneously preserving our natural resources. Because we know our natural resources are and always will be the foundation and life's blood of our prosperity. Pushing back on stereotypes that we only seek instant gratification, I will say that our generation also understands and recognizes that change often comes incrementally. But the southern resident killer whales, along with the rest of our ecosystem, cannot wait 10 more years for committees and special work groups to present yet more recommendations they refuse to fund. We can no longer wait for the gears of bureaucracy. The urgency of the matter at hand requires action now. In 2037, I will be old enough to have just accepted my inauguration as the youngest U.S. female senator. Committed to a clean energy future and the creation of jobs that sustain our state and environment. But the reality of the matter is that the southern residents do not have 13 years to wait. But let's not wait. The vision for a future where our ecosystems thrive, where our children inherit a world richer and more vibrant than we found it, is within our grasp. Today, we are the voices of the voiceless. Mr. Governor, you poignantly stated in your inaugural speech, it is time to remember who we are as a state and who we want to be as a people. Today, life is long and my purpose is clear, yet the relentless march of time spares no one. And for some of our leaders and elected officials, it might be time to have a little chit chat with yourself, taking a good hard look in the mirror and asking yourself, what legacy am I leaving behind? Have I given it my all? Have I put my constituents first or yielded to my party? Are we the generation that allowed the relentless march of extinction to claim the very symbols of our national heritage? Or are we the ones who stood up for what is right and who turned the tide in favor of life, justice, and sustainability? As I stand before you on the shoulders of the pioneers who came before me, armed with the knowledge and values they instilled within me, my resolve has never been stronger, my vision never clearer. Together, we will break the cycle of inaction and lead the way to a future where the southern resident killer whales, the Chinook salmon, and all life in the Columbia Basin and the Salish Sea flourish. The time for action is now. As I bring this address to a close, I would like to again leave you with a quote from Captain Paul Watson. To be responsible for an extinction is to commit blasphemy against the divine. It is the greatest of all possible crimes, more evil than murder, more appalling than genocide, more monstrous than even the apparent unlimited perversities of the human mind. To be responsible for the complete and utter destruction of a unique and sacred life form is arrogance that seethes with evil. For the very opposite of evil is live. It is no accident that these words spell out each other in reverse. Mr. Governor, the evil of extinction and extermination of a noble and majestic species of sentient animals unlike any other in the world is upon you. The entire world is watching. Make us proud.
Thank you, London. Woo!
Well, now it's my honor and privilege to introduce Bill Moyer, Executive Director of the Backbone Campaign, a group that for the last 20 years has provided artful activism, I love it, training and creative action tools like the inflatables that we see here today across the country. Bill is also co-author of the book solutionary rail, and this is a solution. So it's wonderful. Bill Boyers, are you in the house? Yes.
All right, thanks. Appreciate it. Thanks for good words.
Hello, everybody. Good to see you all out there. Hey, can we have a little more volume? Or I guess I just need to, I'm going to hold the mic. All right, here we go. So first I want to say thank you to the crew. It's in the back there. Team Backbone, knocking it out of the park again. Thank you very much. Holding and hopefully staying warm. All right, yeah, my name's Bill Moyer. I'm so glad and honored to be here with you today. I would like to reiterate what that LED sign says up in the back. It says, trains can save salmon. What do I mean by that, huh? Well, I was talking to someone at a wheat co-op and about how they get their wheat to market. And after, a good long conversation, he said to me, I think that most people would like to see farmers and salmon thrive. I think that's pretty basic. I think we can do this. We can make it forward. So for the last couple of years, we at the Backbone campaign, using our work in solutionary rail, decided to turn our experience from rail into something that could be useful for this really essential issue in our region. And had to learn a great deal. It's a bit of a learning curve, and it can be pretty steep, and it can be kind of intimidating. And honestly, the apathy around rail is what creates the potential for others to manipulate us into thinking that the solutions don't exist. So just for your information, about 2.5 million tons of wheat travel down the lower Snake River each year. A bunch of that comes from the Camas Prairie, a little under 100 million tons from the Camas Prairie. That used to be an amazing railroad, and it someday could be. But all the trucks that are coming down those roads are probably going to still come down those roads in the near term. About the rest of that wheat, for the most part, comes off of the Palouse. And some of that is close enough to the river where it's going to truck probably to the river for a while. A bunch of it that comes off of the Palouse doesn't have to be trucked to the river. Now they say, like in the recent hearing that happened, they lie. They just don't care about the truth. That there's no connection between Lewiston and the Tri-Cities. Well, that's just a flat out lie. There is rail service from Lewiston to the Tri-Cities, but it's not utilized. One thing about railroads is that they were built in collaboration with the public. They were the first big public-private partnership. Almost 50% of Washington State was land grants for the railroads. So the railroads have an obligation, and what we call that is a common carrier obligation. Even with deregulation and all our, misguided neoliberal capitalism, the Great Northwest Railroad that runs from Lewiston down to the confluence with the Columbia has a common carrier obligation to provide reasonable service to wheat, in particular grains. And yet it carries none of it right now. And it won't speak up because it doesn't want to make enemies locally, but it has an obligation to carry that wheat if requested to do so. So that railroad, what does 2.5 million tons per year mean? That basically means what they call a unit train, about 100 cars, about 5 of those per week. So less than 1 train per day. That rail system, the Great Northwest, from Lewiston down to, it would probably stop at Wallula, or it would stop at Ayer and trade off with BNSF or Union Pacific. And that track, it could do 5 round trips a day. We have plenty of rail capacity to handle the entire amount of wheat that's already coming to the river. And yet they talk about how, oh, if you breach the dams, it's going to increase truck miles. Well, it's actually kind of probably opposite. Because what we can also do is we can invest in rail service off of the Palouse. We did already invest in rail service on the Palouse. The Washington State owns, I can't remember how many, maybe it's 130 miles, but regardless, we own rail up on the Palouse, and we're maintaining it. But you know what we're also maintaining? We're maintaining the monopolistic control of BNSF Railroad and Union Pacific. The rail that we own as the public used to belong to them, but they didn't want to take care of it any longer, so they spun it off. And then when the short line railroads that were trying to run it couldn't survive and it was going to get abandoned, the state bought it. Kathy McMorris Rogers was a proponent of buying that rail. Well, instead of connecting it and bringing access and competition, we've allowed Union Pacific to control one part of it, and BNSF to control another. The farmers, the short line railroads, the little railroads, they collect the wheat and they go to what are called shuttle terminals, where they take collections of small trains that are locally run potentially, and they put the transfer all that wheat onto big trains called shuttle trains. And all the locomotives and the railroad cars are provided by either Union Pacific or BNSF Railroad. That's kind of a bullshit system, because those wheat farmers and co-ops are completely dependent upon cars and locomotives from those big giant corporations while we're paying for the tracks. So Solutionary Rail has a different idea for going forward. We own not just the PCC rail system on the Palouse, we also own what used to be a very incredible rail corridor from Pasco all the way to Cheney. And we're proposing that we put that back in service of moving wheat all the way from Hooper Junction in the middle of the Palouse up to Pasco. If we do that, and we connect two other little 8-mile sections of abandoned track to the current system, we would have an open access system where small operators, small trains could collect the grain at country elevators. We could push away the big guys, and we could make a vibrant, local, connected transportation network. Cool. I'm glad you like that. I know it's a little in the weeds. So what's the holdup? We see the disinformation, the misinformation, the lies, and it lives on a foundation of ignorance and political polarization. The inaction that we saw happen when Representative Mike Simpson tried to finally put forward a holistic solution, the Democrats were silent. Our organizations that are tied to the Democratic Party were also silent. They were more interested in protecting access than getting action. They are more interested in making sure Governor Inslee feels comfortable so that they can have that seat at the table rather than forcing a creative solution. And we don't have time for that. So, no time for that, and I feel like I'm taking too much of your time. But so we can not only have a zero increase in trucking, we can have a zero emissions rail system off of the Palouse. One of the things that's kind of cool is that from Pasco to Rosalia, you gain about 1,600 feet. Now think about it. If you're in your Prius and you're using your regenerative braking and you're going down, imagine if you have a light load going uphill. It doesn't take as much energy, right? You fill up that train, because we've got a train with regenerative braking, and you let it go downhill. It could be regenerating the energy it takes. That heavy train coming downhill, as opposed to that light train going uphill, could be creating all the energy it needs to power that system. So we not only get trucks off the road, we can create a zero energy short line, what we call open access system that increases competition and access. So this is going to free up things for the farmers and the co-ops. And it's simple. And you know what? The track, the area we own, It's all owned by the state already, except for 16 miles of it. So this is the Rosalia to Pasco short line access corridor is something that's better for everybody. Life is better without the Snake River dams. It's better for co-ops and farmers. It's better for farmers and salmon and tribes. It's better for all of us. It's better for the environment. And I think we, like everybody said here, we do not have 10 years to wait. We could be moving forward on this action right now. We could get the Washington State Department of Transportation, its rail division or its rail ports and freight division, to actually take action. What we're talking about is not a $30 billion project. What we're talking about is probably about a $250 million project, and that's being conservative. It could be far less expensive than that because we already own all the corridor. We know how to do this, and we could be empowering everybody along the way. The last thing I'll say is one of the coolest things about it is that in East Pasco, the Department of Natural Resources has about 600 acres that's sitting doing nothing. I'm not saying doing nothing, but it's sitting ready to be a short line access terminal right at the Tri-Cities Grain. Tri-Cities Grain loads barges. We can have the barges that go on the Columbia. The Tidewater has its offices there. Tidewater still could have some part of this business. They could even win on this too. And all we have to do is take existing state DNR land and make it into a short line rail terminal. That rail line terminal could also be a regional hub for renewable rail by being a maintenance facility for electric locomotives. This is a win-win. This will clean up the air quality around Pasco that's part of the scourge of diesel locomotives. So again, life is better for everybody without the Snake River dams, and we just need to stop protecting access and start prioritizing action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill. Awesome.
How do we get it forward?
I think we stop taking no for an answer, and we stop enabling the nonprofit industrial complex. We stop enabling them to speak for us. We stop pretending that they actually speak for us, and we start showing up at the governor's mansion, the governor's house. You know where we should be showing up is at Bob Ferguson's fundraising events, because he is not listening to us. And he needs to be listening to us, and we should show up at the WashDOT, the Department of Transportation in Washington State. This should be in the next budget to build out this system, because we don't need it to do the transition. We don't need it to breach the dams, but we do. The farmers deserve to have competitive service. They deserve to not be stuck and trapped by monopolies. And we got to have their back too, and that's what I get sick of with this party politics. We've got to be able to all move forward together. And we can't be, we're going to just push it through because we've got control of the legislature. That's bullshit. We need to be taking care of everybody and building trust relationships. We can't, in our spirit and in our politics, afford further polarization. That polarization is a divide and conquer strategy that keeps us all down.
Thank you. Woo! All right, no, that was some great information. So I would love to introduce you Julian Matthews from Nez Perce. He is the Nemo who protecting the environment. And I don't know if I said that right, I'm sorry. Here he is. Thank you for coming. We really appreciate you.
All right, thanks. I just like to say thanks. Actually, I want to show up here today. I live in Pullman and a Washington resident, a well member of the Nez Perce. Ninipu is what we call it. So Ninipu means the people in our language. Ninipu Tim. Nez Perce was a misnomer. And so that was because the French traders came through and they must have saw some Indians and they thought they were nez perce, so they called them nose pierce. It means it's nez perce actually in French. Nez perce is pronounced, but they don't pronounce it that way. It's English nez perce. So anyway, I tell people, I look back into my pictures of what we had of my great grandmother, grandmother, grandfather. I don't see any of them with a pierced nose. So so some of them must have got it wrong. Maybe they're talking about the Chinook down in the lower Columbia, but anyway, I always really appreciate everyone. Elizabeth, I met her with Rights of Nature, and so it's nice to see a lot of people. And it was sad when I heard Joe Waddell passed away, and even there's some people, Jesse Nightwalker, Carrie's son, real advocates for breaching the dams or on the Snake. And it's really sad to see that, you know, it didn't come to fruition in their lifetime. So that's really, hopefully it'll come to fruition in my lifetime. So, and then I'm appreciative of London. We work with a lot of kids over there. We have a Wednesday program with kids carving canoes and carving paddles and doing different tribal cultural activities. And the reason I was talking to a friend of mine who lives over here, John Zitzer, he does a lot of canoes. He helped us start our first canoe when we started carving it over in Lapway. And when we did a video on a healing journey, it was about the dam breaching, it was about the canoe carving, and the intent was to show the dual theme of that we can't go up and down the river like we used to in our canoes, just like the salmon can't go up and down the river like they used to on the Snake. And I'm really, I'd like to say, Bill's got some really good ideas. I went to a get together over there in Pullman and you know, it sounds so logical, you know, what he's saying, and you know, why don't we just do it, you know, like the rail. And it's funny, where I live in Pullman, they put up these signs. They say that they produce the most wheat of any county in the U.S. and they just put those up recently. And so that's it's kind of funny living right in the heart of wheat country, because you know, they use the rivers to ship barge the wheat down to Portland or wherever they're sending it to. And one thing, you know, it's like they're always saying about, you know, go America and all this, and a lot of that wheat's not for consumption here in the U.S. They're selling it overseas. But the way they make it sound like the local farmers, like they're, you know, like, okay, Julian, here's a bunch of wheat, you can go bake some bread, you know, like if you want. But it's kind of more the one thing that I noticed with the migration is there's been a commercialization of everything: water, land, forests. You know, we're working on wolves and grizzly bears now in our treaty area, 55 treaty area. And so it seems to me like, when I look back on it, it seems that if there's something there, like water, land, timber, or animals that gets in the way, that we need to get rid of it, or we need to dam it up. Just like with the dams, you know, they have hydroelectric power, and so they don't really care about the salmon, which we have a treaty right. I'm a real nez perce, and that's one thing that I started pushing a few years ago. I haven't been doing this dam breaching stuff long. You know, people have been doing it, created careers out of it, you know, created jobs out of being, you know, dam breaching type people and different groups. And I thought with the treaty, you know, what is stronger than any agreement that the federal government has? It's with the tribe, a treaty. We have a treaty right that was signed, you know, 150 some years ago by my ancestors that were ensuring that I could fish, hunt, and gather within our treaty area, and usually in a custom areas. That's areas that are outside of the treaty that we go, whether it's hunting, fishing, etc. And so I thought the treaty was a big issue because, like nowadays, like we have a right to take fish from the river. So we ceded 11 million acres of land to the federal government and we retain those rights under the treaty. We didn't give the land to the state of Washington that Wazoo sits on, WSU sits on. We ceded it and we retained rights. And to me, the issue comes down to if the federal government doesn't want to maintain that agreement, then that land, that we need to deal with that land issue. We ceded 11 million acres. And to me, you know, that seems kind of like a far off proposition, but realistically, it's not. If those dams aren't breached and we can't get salmon, exercise my treaty right and others, then that agreement is null and void to me. And so we need to do, and that's why I always push the treaty, because like I heard Bill talking about certain groups, NGOs been doing this for 20 years, suing them, nothing comes of it really, to be honest, personally, that's how I feel. And so when the tribe started getting, well, Shannon Wheeler, our chairman, we started pushing them to push the treaty issue. And albeit the agreement right now, I don't necessarily think it's the greatest one, but that's why it's important. Because I even heard some feedback about people kind of acting like, oh, well, we have this Biden agreement, so we should all lay off the dam breaching or not push it. But I talked to Shannon, it's the same thing. We're pushing to breach the dams. The tribe is, I am, our group, Nimipu, protecting the environment. And so I think it's really important that we keep the pressure on our elected officials. Yeah. And like I said, I'm a Washington resident, and I think Murray Cantwell and the rest of them, I think, and it's like, to me, I like that Elizabeth was saying that we're doing a model with a Wazoo student, kind of virtual reality model about what it would look like with the dams gone, just to show people, because that, and how are we planning, I was asking our tribal council, how are we planning with hatcheries? Like what happens usually if the tribes complain about the fish, they say, oh, we'll give you half interest in this hatchery. So we have interest in 3 hatcheries. BPA built one for $13 million. Cherry Lane, it's called. It's a hatchery, and hatcheries are worthless. It was kind of funny because I have a lot of Coeur d'Alene friends in there in Spokane. They're saying, "Oh, we'll give you millions to build hatcheries." I felt like telling the chairman they're not going to work because they don't work, and because of the dams. And so I think we definitely need to breach the dams and not lose sight of that. Like, to me, one thing that people say, "Oh, well, we need to deal with," like my interest is the Snake River salmon, Chinook, because like people say, it affects everything. Everything's connected. Orcas, I work with Lumbee tribe. We've got a few totem journeys over there, and with the Jules brothers and Freddie Lane, and so we were working with other tribes because there's a connection between the Chinook and the orcas. There's all these connections throughout, and so anyway, we've been working with them, and the main thing is we have to keep pushing the dam breaching, because a lot of these issues, like I've heard them all over the years, spills, release a bunch of water, it helps the smolts, migration, it doesn't really. And so all these different ways that they've been trying to do it, whether it's spills, hatcheries, etc., it's not working. And so I really appreciate that this group here is pushing for breaching the Snake River dams, because that's really what needs to happen. And like I said, people get involved in this deal about everyone along the way, the rail, not the rail, but the water, irrigators. When I drive over here, I see all those wineries, everyone likes to drink wine apparently. So they want to use the water or whatever it is, crops, and so they're using the water from the reservoirs. But the thing to me is, I don't really care about that. To me, what I want for me and for the future, that some of the kids I work with, is for them to be able to go to the river and take a salmon, whether it's for subsistence or for ceremonial purposes, because the lack of salmon affects our ceremonies. We usually have salmon at all our ceremonies, one of our first foods, they call it, along with other types of berries and medicines that we have that we harvest. So it's really important that we have these, not just to, because we want to fish, or because, like with me, I don't go out and fish and sell them or anything. It's nice to have salmon to eat with your family because it's a tradition. I grew up and I stayed in Camden with my aunt, my uncles, and my grandparents would go fishing back then, but that was above the dam, before the dams, actually, most of them. And so it was really good. But now it's changed our lifestyle, our food, our culture, and a lot of issues are coming up, not just because we don't have salmon. So it's really important. I appreciate, like I said, everyone pushing for breaching the dams, and the sooner the better, because that's what I was asking. So I'm on some of these NGO groups and big Zoom meetings. Everyone likes to sit on their ass and talk on Zoom meetings. And, what we should be doing that or whatever. That's cool, but I'm more like, let's do like this. Get out there, do something, and like we've had flotilla. Yeah, so like I said, I appreciate this, and the main thing is like to keep involved and keep telling other people about it, because like I said, the rail stuff is really good for people to understand how we can ship grain a different way, and how we can get different forms of electric and ways out. But mainly what it comes down to for me is the treaty right to take salmon from the river. That has to be changed or it's not. And I would hate to, I don't want to be the person, tribal member in my lifetime that's, the kids look 20, 30 years from, hey, there's no salmon in the river. So what were you doing, Julian, at the time? That's why I'm doing this now, because I don't want to be, oh, well, we were sitting on our ass on Zoom meetings, talking about what we like to do or what we should do. But anyway, I'm grateful for y'all being here, and so I appreciate the support. We're also gonna have we call it Flotilla. It's June 22nd, I believe, the third Saturday in June over at the Hell's Gate State Park. We do a little float, have some fried bread and stew for a tribal member, get a bunch of tribal canoe families. Everyone's welcome. June 22nd. Just check it out on our Facebook. Need protecting the environment, and so we're more than welcome. And like I say, we need people to keep pushing the issue because it's not going to go away, and those salmon aren't going to come back. In 10 years is a long time, so I'm going to make sure we can do what we can to keep pushing the issue. So, thanks a lot.
Thank you. So I just want to tell you all that you rock because you're here. Yeah, we're gonna breach those dams. 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 Woo! So you guys are awesome for coming, and you all can do something. We all can do something. Obviously, I'm not an event organizer. I just decided to do this because I have to do something. Right? So we all can do something. We have animals and postcards and everything you can sign over here. You can leave it here with me, and I will send it on to President Biden, I promise. And you can take your Breach Now signs and you can take a picture of yourself in front of this beautiful building that Inslee lives in, and you can text those to President Biden, and you can also send them to tokitv2022@gmail.com. Really easy to remember. And I also want to thank all of those people that are watching right now. I know there's about 46, 50 people watching on Toki TV right now, and I wanted to thank all of you for watching and supporting us because it takes a village. It takes a village, and we are the village. So let's make it happen. Breach the dams, and let's say a big hand for Right as Rain. They're going to sing us some great songs about breaching the dams. Woo! There it is. So, hey everybody, we have kind of a light setup here for sound because we thought it was going to be windy and rainy. So, move in close so you can hear. We're going to do our best. Can everybody hear me? Okay. I heard you. Okay. Thumbs up if you can hear me.
Now come over here and sign. Got lots of pens and papers. Got whales, we got animals, we got salmon, we got anything you need, and you sign Breach Now, 2024. Sign and
mighty salmon, where are you? You are nowhere to be found. We've made it so you can't get through. Take those damn dams down, take them down. Take those dams down, take them down. All the treasures that we've lost, just to benefit a few. It was never worth it. Take those damn down, take them down.
I'm kind of trapped.
Take those damn dams down,
For
take
Toki
them
TV,
down.
kind of trapped.
And We hear our politicians say this is the only way, but we're the ones who pay. And deep in our hearts we know what to do. Change comes from the end you. Together we will see this
Yeah, right there. Sign your name. Reach
through.
now 2024. Your zip code, please.
Come on, people, raise your voice.
Yep.
We need everyone to stay.
Right here. Here's
The
a
time is now, we have no choice. Take those damn dams down, take them down. Let me hear you.
Yeah. Reach now.
Take those
2024.
damn dams down, take them down. Take those damn dams down, take them down.
Sign your name and zip code.
Take those damn dams down, take them down. Yeah. All right. We have a song that I was so inspired by listening to Bill talk about the rail. That is amazing and so hopeful. We have it within our grasp to replace those barges, get them off the river. And we have a song about that called The Climate Train.
Want to come dance with us?
Can you guys hear the guitar okay? And the voices? Here,
I'm
this-
a crazy one.
There I am.
There you are.
Let's harness the wind, soak up the sun. Green power's better for everyone. We know how. Just gotta fan that flame. So climb aboard the climate train. Temperatures rising, sea levels too. Gas-powered engines belching CO2. Electricity, it's the name of the game. So climb aboard the climate train. Well, fish gotta swim, and birds gotta fly. Undam the rivers, and clean up the sky. We can't have no more of the same old same. So climb aboard the climate train. They ship wheat on the river, fish on the road. Who thought of that one? God only knows. It's no good, it's no good, it's no good. It's a crying shame. So climb aboard the climate train.
alone, it's on us. No one else to blame. So climb aboard the climate train. Yeah, climb aboard the climate train.
Thank you. Got another damn song.
You put dams in their way, build ladders they can't climb, so salmon can't get home. Well, they're running out of time. So the one thing we should do to keep them swimming free is just tear those damn dams down. Oh, tear those damn dams down. Let them go to rubble. Take a wrecking ball to that nasty wall that's causing so much trouble. For all that time and money, no salmon do we see. So tear those damn dams down and set the river free. Well, they say they're carbon neutral. They say they're clean and green. But nothing's eco-friendly about those killing machines. Damming up a river brings nature to its knees. Let's just tear those damn dams down. Everybody. Oh, tear those damn dams down. Let them go to rubble. Take a wrecking ball to that nasty wall that's causing so much trouble. For all that time and money, no salmon do we see. So tear those damn dams down and set the river free. So tell your legislators and remind them that you vote. Our orca need their salmon. The tribes deserve support. So before they're gone forever, and your salmon dinner too, let's just tear those damn dams down. Oh, tear those damn dams down. Let them go to rubble. Take a wrecking ball to that nasty wall that's causing so much trouble. For all that time and money, no salmon do we see. So tear those damn dams down and set the river free. So tear those damn dams down and set the river free.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's so good to have people show up for this. And thanks to all the speakers and Christina for organizing everything and everyone, all your efforts. Thank you so much. Let's keep it up. Yes, we are going to be doing some wonderful actions for those people who live in Seattle area. We're going to be doing a human orca mural in honor of Earth Day. It's going to be the weekend right before Earth Day, the 21st, I believe it is. And we are looking for people that want to organize human orca murals in their community. Bill and Amy of Backbone Campaign have all the materials and the know-how. and it's a really great community building event that you can do anywhere you have an open space, and it's just a great way to bring people together and send a message. So reach out to Bill or Amy with Backbone Campaign if you have any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank